Hey everyone, intuitive and astrologer Lisa Salvatore here to talk to you today about Mars's entrance into Gemini and Mars retrograde. So, in true Mars in Gemini fashion, I want to share with you a quick little lesson that I already received about Mars's entrance into Gemini. Now, I will say I am a Gemini rising, and so for those of you that have Gemini as one of your big three, the sun, the moon, or the ascendant, especially the ascendant, this might be a little bit of a foreshadow for you as well. So last week, I was doing several different things at once, which is one of the many gifts of Gemini energy, is the ability to be very flexible, be very adaptable, be very versatile, very quick on your feet, quick in general, and able to multitask. But the shadow side to the strong Gemini energy is that it can spin us out and it can make us feel scattered, and we can do too many things at once and need to reel it back in. And also finish what we start. That is the lower end of expression of strong Gemini energy. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, last week I wanted to get a video out on the Virgo new moon, which is coming up this weekend, August 27th, and also the entrance of Virgo season, which just happened yesterday, August 22nd. The sun moved into Virgo. And Mars moved into Gemini on August 20th. And so I wanted to get everything out in that one video. Specifically, I wanted to talk more about Mars. And then as I started to do this video, which is already posted, you can find that linked below. As I started to do this video and I got more into Mars, I realized there was so much more I wanted to say, and I wanted to go more into Mars's transit through Gemini and what this means for your sign, by your rising sign specifically, but also your sun and your moon. And so when I went to go and do that, I definitely was feeling scattered, had too many things going on at once, and wanted to get this video out. And so in doing that, I made a mistake. I ended up, for half the signs, going into the new moon where it would be by the houses and not actually Mars. And anyway, I edited that part out of the video because it was not even that thorough or that accurate. But so that, I'm being completely honest with you guys, that was my first lesson here, because that's what Mars retrograde is going to be about, okay? First lesson about where does Gemini fall in my chart and how am I supposed to backtrack, backpedal, revise, and do things differently, right? For more effective results, and how to not let the shadow component of the Mars in Gemini, Mars retrograde specifically in Gemini, affect me or affect you. So anyway, that was a little bit of my first lesson with Mars in Gemini, and this is prior to the retrograde, so this could just be showing me like what my Mars retrograde experience could be a little bit about, right? And so for me, it was a real learning curve about don't rush ahead when you're not feeling it, or when you know you don't have the time to do something thoroughly. Don't do the Gemini and just boom, 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 go faster, faster, faster and try to get it out, but rather pull back and wait until the time is right, or do it when you're able to do it in full totality and tie up loose ends and close something out. Okay, very long-winded example there about what this already has started to be for me specifically. And if you are a Gemini rising or moon or sun, you may yourself have already experienced something. Somebody did ask me if this could be already felt. And so I thought that would be just a way to show you how this, yes, absolutely can already be felt. Okay, so now I am back with a much calmer video about Mars's entrance into Gemini, the 7-month stay, extended stay of Mars there, and also Mars's retrograde and what this means for you by your sign. First, just be sure to like, share, and please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified when the content is uploaded. And also, it really helps me to grow my channel, and I truly appreciate all of you being here. And also linked below, you can find the information for the Virgo new moon, the sun's entrance into Virgo, and touching upon Mars's entrance into Gemini. And then in here, I'm going to go much deeper into that. Okay, so first, Mars. If you don't already know where Mars falls in your chart, but more specifically where Gemini falls in your chart, there's a quick tutorial linked below, shows you how to pull up your chart on astro.com. I suggest using Astro because it's free and it's quick and it's pretty user-friendly, and it does show you, along with the symbols, it actually writes things out for you so you can see where Mars is in your chart, where Gemini is in your chart. You are going to want to know where Gemini is in your chart. Okay, so Mars. Mars is the planet, the red hot planet of energy, okay? It is our will to fight. It's our will to win. It represents the way that we stand up for ourselves. It's our driving force, our energy levels. It's our assertion. It's our aggression. It's also our anger. It's our irritation. It's our sexual drive. It is our drive. Mars shows the way we take action. It shows what we're drawn to. It shows what we're drawn in by. It also shows how we respond to conflict. how we do conflict, also how we strategize. Gemini is a mutable air sign, which is of the intellect. Gemini is a busy sign. It's always buzzing. Gemini likes to communicate. Gemini likes to think. Gemini likes to speak. Gemini likes to collect information. Gemini likes to be in the know. So while Mars is in Gemini, remember Mars is how we take action. Gemini is our mind. It's the intellect. And Gemini moves really quick. And so does Mars. So, like I said in my last video, our mouths and our minds are on fire while Mars is in Gemini. This is for everybody. And it's important to remember that because when Mars stations retrograde on October 30th until January 12th, in that time period, words can get very heated, okay? Not just verbally, but through social media, through the news media outlets. There's gonna be a lot of information coming in at us, okay? And also coming out of us. And so we need to be more mindful, a key word for Gemini, about how we assert our words. We're definitely going to want to think more before we speak. And that is not very natural for Gemini, right? It's also not very natural for Mars because Mars just likes to act. Mars acts, that's it. Gemini thinks quickly at that. Mars acts quickly, so when we have these two together, it can implode at times, especially while Mars is retrograde. Now, Mars normally spends about 5 to 7 weeks in each zodiac sign, okay? It moves throughout the zodiac and it shifts into each sign every 5 to 7 weeks. Once every 2 years, Mars will station retrograde for a period of 2 to 3 months. So when you think about it, when you do the math on that, each zodiac sign will have a Mars retrograde in its sign once for the better part of every, 2 decades. So we haven't had a Mars in Gemini retrograde, a Mars retrograde in the sign of Gemini since 1990. To give you an idea of why you'll hear astrologers say that this is rare, it's a rare occurrence. This is the reason. I'm also going to address here if you are born during a Mars retrograde and what that means, if you're Mars retrograde at birth, if Mars is retrograde in your natal chart. We're going to talk about that as well, because I know there's a lot of questions on that. So there's something else I want to mention because I have been getting this question a lot. This transit will not affect everybody the same way, okay? Let me be clear on that. For the most part, the themes of Mars and Gemini worldwide will be the same, of course, but it's going to affect us all on the individual level much differently. For some of us, it's going to really feel very intense. And for others of us, we may not feel much at all except an increased mental capability, which is a good thing. Again, one of the gifts of Mars and Gemini, gift of gab, the gift of thinking quickly on our feet, the gift of doing things a different way and doing several different things at once to get to a better result. But those very same things that could be an asset can also become a hindrance for somebody else. So it's not going to be the same for everybody. So don't go into doom and gloom thinking, because remember, Mars is conflict, right? But Mars can also help us effectively deal with conflict and deal with it differently. And that's also a big benefit of Mars retrograde in Gemini, is that it helps us to do conflict in a different way. And by knowing where Gemini falls in your chart, you're going to have a better understanding, you're going to have a deeper understanding of how this may play out for you. So remain open-minded as you listen to this. And as I always say, be your own guru. So let's cover some more basics. Again, I told you there's a lot I want to say, and this is why the last video was so scattered, because I was trying to just blast things out, and I just should not have done that. But all right, Gemini rules over many, many different things. But aside from the verbal component, the wordy component, the witty component, Gemini physically rules over our lungs and also our nervous systems. Now, this is important. And again, I'm speaking from experience as well by having a Gemini ascendant. Gemini can give us a tremendous amount of energy, okay? It's very important, especially if you have strong Gemini placements, to have a physical outlet during this time. For example, boxing, okay? I've always loved boxing. It's great energy release for me. So maybe taking up a different form of exercise, something more high intensity if that's good, if that's allowable for you, if that's feasible for you. But also having calming exercises as well, meditations, listening to classical music. That has become such a huge part of my life, meditation and music, because I do get that bzzz energy a lot. And as much as it helps to get it out, you also need to go inward, right? Now, Mars also rules over many things, but some of the things that Mars rules over are actually our blood, also inflammation and rashes. So we want to keep this in mind too, especially while Mars is going to be retrograde from October through January. We definitely want to supplement and take extra care of our lungs and our respiratory health. Everybody, forewarned is forearmed, like I always say, and there's no harm in taking precautionary measures. Another thing with Mars, especially in Gemini, driving. I talk about this a lot. Have your vehicle checked. Check your tires. Make sure that everything is in working order. Make sure you're not distracted while you're driving. Again, Gemini, the multitasker, don't be texting, don't be looking at your phone, don't be looking at 5 different things in the car because you run the risk of an accident, right? More so while Mars is in retrograde, but really the whole time of Mars in Gemini. Use both hands on the wheel. Gemini also rules the hands. But don't use your hands to flip someone the bird if they pass you or if they cut you off, because with Mars in Gemini, you're more than likely going to get into a verbal altercation that can get heated really quickly because everyone is also more hot-headed, especially while Mars is retrograde. The most important thing to remember while Mars is in Gemini, especially while Mars is retrograde in Gemini, is that our words have power, our thoughts have power. We must use them wisely. Words can also be weapons, and words, when said, cannot be taken back. We also want to watch what we're following through the media outlets, through social media, through mainstream media. How are we getting our information? Is everything that we're getting factual? Because there may be, 2 different sides, 3 different sides, 4 different sides. So we're all gonna feel overloaded. Our systems are going to feel overloaded with information. Also physically taxed. So it's important to just make sure you take some time to take breaks from social media, take breaks from the media. Don't spin your wheels too much, because more than ever under Mars and Gemini, especially during the retrograde cycle, that is where we could see ourselves come up with, a nasty cold or nasty fights with others. It is going to be a time of heightened frustration and heightened anger. So it would be wise for all of us to remember to slow down, okay? And even though there's a gift of tremendous energy with this Mars in Gemini, we also must remember that it can spin us out and flatten us right on our face if we're not careful. Now, let me also say that there are going to be some really nice moments while Mars is getting ready to station retrograde and also while Mars is retrograde, okay? So this is not necessarily going to be bad. It's not necessarily going to be great, but it is going to be beneficial, and that's important to keep sight of. So let's go back to if you were born with Mars retrograde at birth. First of all, when Mars is retrograde, and we also have to take into account the sign that it falls in your chart if you are born during a Mars retrograde, and also which house it falls in, okay? But generally speaking, if you are born during Mars retrograde, your will to act, your drive, your energy levels, your assertion will sometimes take a back seat to how you feel inwardly. Because inwardly, you're more than likely confident and assured and assertive, but then when you go to take action, it could feel thwarted. You could feel like there's this invisible force that's stopping you or that's holding you back from dealing with conflict effectively, or from having people understand you effectively, or for being able to fight for what you want. Again, inwardly, you can feel totally confident, but outwardly, you can be totally shaken and not able to move forward. You may struggle to stand up for yourself if you were born during Mars retrograde, and then you get angry with yourself because you know you have the drive and you know you have the energy and you know you're a force, so why can't you take action, right? But what's really important to keep sight of if you're born during Mars retrograde is that you are somebody that likely works in fits and bursts, okay? So when your energy levels are high, you are committed and you can just drive forward and get things done, get things accomplished. But it's more of a slow burning energy, and when it peaks and hits, it's quick and it's fast and it's in bursts and spurts. It's not going to be constant if you're born during Mars retrograde. But by cultivating patience and awareness of how your Mars expresses or does not, that is what is going to help you gain a handle on it and move forward and assert your energy and deal with conflict more effectively in your life. Now, the other side to Mars retrograde. Because Mars also rules over, it's our energy and our drive, it also rules over our sexual drive, our sexual energy. And so if you are born during Mars retrograde, you may also experience some episodes of sexual repression, sexual frustration, or even an impaired sex drive. And again, that's going to vary dependent upon where Mars falls in your chart, what aspect is it making to other planets, what sign is it in. So this is not, a broad statement that says this is going to happen for each and every single one of you, that if you're Mars retrograde at birth, you're always sexually frustrated. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that these are just some ways in which this can play out. But more often than not, what I see with Mars, with those that are born during a Mars retrograde, is that it's more about the anger at themselves when they feel like they can't take action to get what they want. That's really where it fully expresses itself. Now, I've also seen Mars retrograde play out with people that are addicted to porn, other outlets, okay? But again, I could go off on a whole nother tangent. Here we go, Mars and Gemini, whole nother tangent. So everything that I just said about if you're born during a Mars retrograde, now think about while Mars is retrograde. Everything that I just said could be issues that we are all dealing with on different levels. Could be. Our energy levels are not going to be constant while Mars is retrograde. Because think about it. Mars always wants to just trudge forth, move ahead, plow through, get things done. So then when Mars goes retrograde, it slows us down. It's not as open. In a sign like Gemini, Gemini wants to be quick. Gemini wants to move. Gemini wants to speed through and get the information out. But not while retrograde. This is where all those frustrations are going to begin to mount. Now, Gemini is also the sign of reading, it's writing, it's expression, it's our words, it's our communication capabilities. Now, Gemini can also fall prey to idle gossip, so watch out for that under the Mars retrograde. Fact check everything. Don't take everything at face value. And remember, there's always 3 sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth, right? Now, here's another really good thing about Mars, especially Mars retrograde. Mars wants us to assert our independence, all of us, okay? And Mars wants to make us a warrior, because Mars is the warrior, right? He's the god of war. He fights for what he wants. He doesn't back down. He doesn't take any prisoners. But of course, Mars also represents conflict. So especially when Mars is retrograde, we may experience some conflict, but the purpose of that conflict is to bring forth our true warrior capabilities, our true fighter's spirit, to bring us more into our own unique individuality, and to make us very aware of that which has been holding us back. That's another big thing with Mars retrograde. It's going to highlight our anger, and that is going to be because whatever it is that frustrates us is leading us to solution. It's showing us where something needs to shift, where we are our own worst enemy, and how we can course correct that. So again, by looking at it in the highest vibration possible, even amidst any conflict or confrontation that could occur under this Mars and Gemini retrograde cycle, just remember that the ultimate end game is to make you a true warrior in this specific area of your life. Now also, Gemini is the sign of education, it's a sign of communication, so this is a really good time to revise projects, to work on your words, to work on your communication skills. So we can always use it in the highest vibration. We just have to remain conscious of the fact that we are going to feel irritated. It's just the way it's going to be. And everyone is feeling this, like I always say. And that also goes a long way in recognizing on how we can use this energy to our advantage so that it doesn't become a slippery slope and verbal confrontations left and right. Now, of course, for some of us, dealing with conflict and confrontation more effectively is going to be the actual lesson of Mars retrograde. So we're going to have to really take notice of what comes up, what aggravates us, especially when it comes in through others, other people in our lives. Okay, so let's get right into the signs. Now, as always, I'm going to tell you to go by your rising sign, but also you can go by your sun and your moon if you want to listen to all 3, if you know them, just to kind of see, like how this is working, how this feels for you, how this resonates with you. So let's start with Aries, sun, moon, rising. Okay, Aries, for you, this is very significant because Mars is your ruling planet. So whatever Mars does affects Aries placements strongly because it is your ruler. It's your planetary ruler. And for Aries, Aries is a warrior. Aries doesn't really like to slow down, but slow down you must while Mars is retrograde. Now, this retrograde is going to take place in your 3rd house. Now, this is also very significant because the 3rd house is the house that Gemini rules over. So not only is your ruling planet retrograde in the sign of Gemini, but it's also retrograde in the Gemini house. So the way that you communicate, the way that you deal with your siblings or your close people in your community, the way you give out information, the way you receive information, all falls under the 3rd house energy. And so while Mars is in Gemini, and then especially while Mars stations retrograde, these areas are going to become of significance for you, Aries. So look at it as anything that comes up from the end of August, basically until mid to late October, while Mars is direct, is actually going to be just a little snippet of what's to come while Mars is retrograde, and it's going to show you where you can revise, where you can backpedal, where you can slow down, because even you, Aries, has to slow down. Now again, on the shadow side, on the lower vibration, the 3rd house is also short distance travel and transportation. It's also our cars. So again, for you, Aries, just be very, very mindful with the aggression, especially when you're driving, not to be too distracted, not to multitask. And also when you're communicating, especially with your siblings or the people that are like siblings to you, you really want to pay attention to that because there could potentially be some conflict there that you have to lean into. Mars retrograde is a time to go into the conflict and deal with it more effectively because it's showing you a different way of dealing with it. You may have to look at the ways in which you try to always be right with other people in your life or when you're communicating, where you may have to back down and let other people have their opinion, let other people have their voice. Blind spots could be pointed out under this energy, especially while Mars is retrograde. Now, on the positive side of expression here for you, Aries, it's a great time to, if you're working on any kind of writing project, if you're working on a novel, if you're working on a blog, putting anything out into the world, especially while Mars is direct right now, it's a good time to do that. But just triple check your words so that when Mars actually goes retrograde, you don't have something coming back around to bite you in the butt. Fact check yourself, fact check what you're doing in any way, shape, or form that deals with communication for you, Aries. Okay, Taurus, Taurus Sun, Taurus Moon, Taurus Rising. This retrograde is going to, well, Mars is going to spend 7 months in your second house. It will retrograde there as well. The second house deals with our money. It deals with our personal finances. It deals with our resources. It deals with our self-worth. So you may come up against some sort of conflict with the way that you handle your finances, or maybe you're seeking more financial freedom or financial independence, and this can be a really good time for that, especially while Mars is retrograde. You can start reassessing your money, talking to other people about your money. The second house also has to do with food. So you can start working on the way you spend money on food or the way you don't spend money on food. How are you cooking your food? Do you like to cook? This could all come up under the Mars retrograde energy. Gemini rules the hand, so maybe you're going to get more involved in cooking. Creative expression through food, also through money, because Gemini is our creative expression. But more specifically, I think this is going to have to do for Taurus with their assets, with their money, the way that they're handling it. And if you've been doing things in a way where you, for example, are always saving up for a rainy day and you don't really spend money, under the retrograde, you may actually find yourself wanting to make a power purchase. But I would just caution you to be very, very careful about that. You may want to wait until Mars is direct before making a big power purchase, but if everything lines up for you and you've been doing things on the up and up, it may be okay. So again, this is going to be different for everybody. But more than anything, for strong Taurus placements, Taurus rising, this is definitely going to have to do with your financial freedom, your financial independence, the way you handle your finances, the way you handle your resources. Do you own? Do you rent? Do you want to own? Do you want to rent? All of that. And you may also find yourself getting angry about things you've done in the past. But try not to focus on that. Try to just figure out how to redirect the energy for a better future. That's a way of using this energy constructively. Again, this has the potential to be really, really good for you financially. Okay, Gemini. Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon, Gemini Rising. This is big for you because Mars is spending 7 months in your sign. And this is in your first house. The first house is our personal life. It is us. It's our personality. It's the way that we express ourselves. It's our physical energy. So on one hand, having Mars in Gemini for Gemini rising is extremely energizing, extremely invigorating. You can find yourself with a lot of physical energy, like a burst. Mental energy as well, which can be really beneficial for getting projects off the ground. You can find yourself really motivated to take action. But the shadow side to that is that you can be more irritable, much less patient, much more scattered. Think about when Mars goes retrograde, especially for the Gemini rising, this is all about tying up loose ends. Try to put your energy onto one project that needs to be completed instead of spreading your energy into too many different things at once, because that's how you're going to spin out and likely create more conflict for yourself. The Mars retrograde, especially for Gemini, is going to ask you to really slow down and focus on the self. Remember, this is about your personal life. You may be called upon to talk a lot under this energy. You may not want to, or you may talk too much, or you may be criticized for things that you say. That's the shadow side to the Mars retrograde for this sign. Remember, the first house is your expression. It's who you are out in the world, and it's the way that others receive you. So if you lash out under this energy, it's not going to be forgotten that quickly. Remember, more than any other sign, if you're Gemini rising, your mouth and mind is on fire. Now that could be a really good thing. It can be used very constructively, or it can be destructive. And this is where the words are weapons comes in. So be very, very mindful of that, because it's a quick, hot, fast, impulsive energy for everyone across the board, but it's definitely going to be felt the strongest for Gemini placements, strong Gemini placements, especially the ascendant. Also, be very, very careful with movement, because this is an energy that's more accident prone, especially when we enter the retrograde period. So, from August 20th through around like October 20th, if you're Gemini rising, Gemini moon, Gemini sun, you're gonna probably be feeling this tremendous burst of energy, physical energy. Like gonna feel, this is great, I have all this drive, I have all this, wherewith to get things done. But then especially when Mars stations retrograde, which will be October 30th, you really want to make sure that you make a conscious effort to slow down, because you are going to have a lot of energy. And, even during the retrograde cycle, you will probably still have a lot of energy. It may slow you down a bit, But again, if you're Gemini rising, you'll still plow through that. So you want to be careful, okay? Coming from a klutz, I know, I have to always consciously tell myself, especially when I'm cutting food or anything having to do with knives or instruments, I'm always like, Lisa, slow down. Literally, I tell myself this. I've done it since I was a kid because I know that I can be accident prone. And so I'm really going to watch this energy, knock on wood. And you should too if you have strong Gemini placements. You should do this anyway, regardless while Mars is in Gemini, but especially if you have strong Gemini placements so that you can try to avoid any pitfalls here of this strong energy. But using this in the highest vibration, you can redefine who you truly are. You can do a lot of internal work. You can work on your communication skills as well. And it can be a very productive transit. Okay, Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising. This transit of Mars in Gemini is going to be in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is behind the scenes, right? This is a very spiritual place. This is very private. This is very internal. This can even make us feel like we're growing a little kooky sometimes. So you're definitely going to be feeling very, very sensitive, more sensitive than normal if you're a Cancer rising, and also more moody more than likely, and like you're probably going to want to stay home a lot more. This is very private, okay? You may energize yourself in private more than publicly. Again, you can become a real homebody under this energy. The thing with when Mars goes retrograde especially, you want to watch your vices because the 12th house does rule over our vices, right? But you also might have it pointed out to you, or it might become glaringly obvious where you self-sabotage, because that's the 12th house as well. It's our own undoing. It's where we sabotage ourselves. And sometimes when it comes to 12th house energy, it could be revealed to us where we have hidden enemies, where somebody's working behind the scenes against us. So if you're a Cancer rising, this may be something that comes up for you, a conflict that you may have to deal with under the Mars retrograde. But remember, the purpose of it is to strengthen you, it's to toughen you, it's to become more of a warrior in this area of your life. This Mars in Gemini, and especially the retrograde point of the cycle, could really highlight and point out to you where you are your own worst enemy and have you really working on your self-confidence. Again, this is a very internal space, and you may even find that you enter talk therapy at this time because Gemini is all about talking, right? It's communication. Past life regression could be a great way of handling this energy because, again, we're dealing with Cancer, which is a water sign. We're dealing with the 12th house, which is a water house. And we're dealing with the psychic, spiritual, and invisible realms. So why not go for some sort of alternate treatment, such as past life regression, EMDR? More on the spiritual healing. That will be the focus here. Okay, Leo Sun, Leo Moon, Leo Rising. This transit is going to take place in your 11th house. Now, the 11th house is all about our long-term goals and aspirations. It's about the way we work with the group. It's about group efforts and group projects. It's also about our friendships. It's our goals, it's our dreams, it's our wishes. Also, online, the internet falls under the 11th house, and Gemini is all about communication and information. So for you, Leo, this could be a time of a high focus on, what's trending on the internet, right? Like, especially if you do any kind of social media work, if you're any kind of an influencer, or you may decide to become one under this energy. Remember, Leo likes to shine. Leo wants the spotlight, so this could be a way of you really bringing yourself out and doing more with that. Now, the shadow side to this is that you could have conflict with friends, with a friend or friendships that you're a part of or groups that you're a part of. You could come up against some conflict that needs to be worked through. And you may be called to completely redirect your energies right now in these areas. But again, you can use the retrograde point of the cycle to really work on your goals. Volunteer work could be another thing that could come up for you under this energy. You could become recognized for some of the work that you're doing out in the world. You can have a higher social standing that comes through from this transit. I find when planets transit the 11th house, yeah, of course, there could be some conflict always attached to it or something negative that could come out of it. But again, the 11th house is really the way that we do, group work, group effort, humanitarian efforts. It's the way that we put our energy out there with our friends. So, I don't know. I tend to look at the 11th house in a more beneficial light. But of course, Mars is a planet that technically is a malefic and does tend to bring with it some form of conflict. So just be mindful of that. And especially for you, Leo, when it comes to your friends, watch getting into heated debates because a friendship could end under this energy, especially if they have strong Gemini. Okay, Virgo rising, Virgo Sun, Moon, Rising. This transit is going to take place in your 10th house. Now, Virgo, you are a mutable sign, just like Gemini, just like Sagittarius, and just like Pisces. So this is also going to be very strong for you. Now, the 10th house is all about your career, your public life, your public face, your ambitions. It's also your reputation and your status. It also represents the authority figures in our lives. So on the positive side, with Mars and Gemini here for you, you could be very, very motivated to climb the corporate ladder, maybe to start your own business or to start a new organization for yourself, or to reorganize the way you're doing business or the way you're doing work. Perhaps you go for a higher position in your company. You may feel much more competitive, for better or worse. Don't go head to head with your boss or your superiors, because that might result in a loss. It's just like we have the positive side here to this Mars in Gemini in your 10th house. We also have the side that can result in extreme conflict and confrontation, which can then result of a downfall in your reputation, because the 10th house is your reputation. It's your social standing, it's your professional face out in the world. So again, you know, on the most positive end of expression here, you could just feel really, really driven and motivated towards your goals, towards what you want to achieve out in the world. But just remember, since the 10th house is so public, especially while Mars is retrograde, it might not be received the way you hope. So that may be a time of you to really just step back and revise everything that you're doing. Don't get too big for your britches, regardless of any really positive things that can take place for you when it comes to your career, when it comes to your public standing. Because just as quickly, things can heat up again. But again, on the most positive side of expression, you can get very, very organized, very, very motivated, and do really, really well and achieve a lot. Okay, Libra, Sun, Moon, Rising. This transit's going to take place for you in your 9th house. Now, Libra, you are an air sign, just like Gemini, okay? So you're going to likely feel more of the benefits from this transit for the most part, not entirely, so don't get too excited. But remember, Gemini trines Libra. It's a supportive aspect for the most part throughout this transit. Now, it will support your communication. It will support you in any areas of higher education, foreign travel, long distance travel, your belief systems, anywhere you're looking to expand. But if you take advantage of that energy too much, you can see the negative side to this. So if you wanted to use this time to enroll in a new course of study, I think that's a tremendously wonderful way to use this Mars in Gemini, especially the retrograde part of the cycle if you're a Libra rising, because you're really, really supported in doing so. When it comes to travel, if you have something planned, I think it's perfectly fine, especially if you've, already been planning it for a while. But because it's Mars and because Mars is retrograde, again, I don't subscribe to doom and gloom astrology or fatalistic astrology, but, there is something to be said about Mars, can lend to more accidents, right? And being the operative word. And things do crop up, things do get heated. So I don't know, I'm not gonna tell you not to travel, especially, long distance, but if something does come up last minute and it just doesn't feel right to you, I would, especially during the retrograde cycle, I probably wouldn't. But other than that, I think everything else is pretty straightforward for you, Libra. You could also use the time to plan a trip, to plan an excursion, as opposed to actually executing it during the retrograde part of the cycle. And again, Mars will be retrograde from October 30th until January 12th. So maybe you start planning the trip and you go in April. Again, don't avoid it, but just giving you a different spin. Also, the 9th house is publishing. So if you're a Libra rising, and you're working on a book or a book deal or anything of that nature, putting something out there, starting a new blog, anything that has to do with publishing, especially when it's professional publishing, this is probably a good time to set your sights on a new publisher, on working on getting your work out into the world. Mars retrograde can be really good for you in that area. The 9th house is opposite the 3rd house, which is the Gemini house, both featuring education, especially when it comes to reading and writing. Okay, Scorpio rising. This is also important for you the same way it was for Aries. Well, it's important for all of us, but for Scorpio rising, because Mars is your ruler. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. It operates a little differently than Mars and Aries because Mars is also the ruler of Aries, but when in Aries, Mars is more of a direct expression, while it's in Scorpio, it's more of an indirect expression, but it's still just as forceful and just as powerful. It's just more calculated, right? It doesn't act as quickly. It does act, but it's got a laser sharp focus and it takes its time. Again, much more methodical and much more calculated than Mars and Aries, but still just as powerful. So with Mars and Gemini in this part of your chart for 7 months in the 8th house, the 8th house is the Scorpio house, okay? Mars rules Scorpio, so this is intense for you, Scorpio. And you're likely going to feel that. You're probably feeling it already. You could feel very, very focused and motivated on a specific point of research. You could uncover something that's long since been forgotten, either about yourself or about someone else in your life. The 8th house deals with secrets, so you could uncover some secrets under this energy. The shadow side to that is if you are the one involved in secrets, conflict could arise under the Mars retrograde where something gets dug up about you that you may not want out there. The 8th house is also about deep, deep bonds and intimacy and sex. So your sex drive could get a tremendous boost. You could also feel more angry. You could be dealing with something having to do with joint assets. That's the 8th house. Inheritances, taxes, and loans. So be especially careful with your finances, especially finances that are borrowed, other people's finances. This is all about the way that we share of ourselves and our assets. So you may really be reevaluating all of these things. And yeah, you may feel angry about it at times, but you also may feel much more motivated to resolve any type of conflict. Now, if you have any psychological wounds from your past, they could really come up under this energy. Again, just like I mentioned for the Cancer rising, it's the same for you, Scorpio, because the 8th house deals with the psychological stuff. So this might be a good time for talk therapy. Gemini rules talking, it's the words. You may want to find a trusted counselor. You yourself may decide to go into counseling, or you may be playing the role of counselor to somebody else in your life. It could also be a way that Mars retrograde brings something up for you. It may not actually be about you, but you may be doing this for someone else. Again, it can be a great time for research of any kind. Okay, Sagittarius rising. This one for you, it could feel very triggering when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to your connections. This could bring up conflict in relationships, either new or existing. If it's existing, the Mars retrograde especially can be very, very revealing for you. You could feel very, very frustrated. You could feel very, very angry. You can find that other people in your life, your relationships, they're attacking you. You could feel attacked. It could feel like everyone is against you. You can find yourself really rethinking your relationships. This is not just romantic relationships. This is also platonic relationships and business relationships, especially if it's by way of a contract, like you have a formal contract, like a marriage or a business partner. Now, conflict here could actually lead to the breaking of a contract, the severing of a very specific important relationship in your life. But if that's the case for you, Sag, just know that this is likely something that has been going on for a while. It's just going to highlight conflict if there's already ongoing conflict. You may be intolerant towards something you've always been tolerant toward, and you need to take the higher perspective here and look at the reason this is coming up for you. Your anger is trying to guide you. So stuffing it under the rug is going to be pretty much unavoidable under this energy. Now remember that Gemini is your opposite sign, okay? So you're going to really have this gift of looking at things differently under this energy, but it is not going to feel good, and it could at times feel very aggressive, and you yourself might feel like others are being aggressive toward you. So you may need a lot more alone time than what you're used to so that you can process all of this coming at you, Sagittarius. But don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to communicate. Remember, Gemini is all about communication. But make sure you use your words wisely, because remember, words are weapons under this energy. Okay, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Rising. This is going to take place in your 6th house of your daily routines, your health, your physical health, your nutrition, your habits, also your work, and the people that you work with. You're being asked to be more flexible under this energy, to go with the flow a little bit more. If you have conflict with somebody in your life that you work with on the regular, that may really be exacerbated under this energy. So it's probably wise to have it in your mind to be ready to adapt, to be ready to edit your everyday reality, to change your habits, to restructure your routine. Capricorn's big on routine. But again, this is a time period where it's going to likely be shown to you where you may need to be more flexible. And if you have animosity with a coworker, for example, it's definitely going to be highlighted under this energy. I'm pretty confident about that. But on the positive side, it can make your work much more productive. It can help you work better with somebody else, in which ways before you couldn't. You could see eye to eye more. You can have peaceful resolution. Old projects may circle back around for you to tie up some loose ends and to revise them. Something you thought was dead in the water might come back up to work on. Now, worst case scenario, you could be dealing with a health conflict, a health crisis, or it could be somebody else in your life that you see regularly dealing with a health crisis, and you have to step up and help them through it. That's a way you can deal with the conflict. Your own fitness and food regimen could totally change under this energy. You can feel much more motivated to do things more positively when it comes to those areas. But this should be a fairly productive transit for you either way. But you will more than likely feel heated in the process. Okay, Aquarius rising. This is going to take place in your 5th house. Now, the 5th house is the house of your physical energy and vitality. It is your sex drive. It is the children in your life, whether you have your own children or the children that you deal with on the day-to-day. It's also the house of love and romance and pleasure. This is the way we do adventure. So like I said about Libra, this is also beneficial for the most part transit for you because you're an Aquarius, you're an air sign. This is Mars in Gemini, which is trining, which is a helpful aspect here for the most part in your sign. So you can definitely receive a lot of benefits, a lot of an increased awareness and energy level in all the fifth house matters that I just mentioned. So if you're single, this is a great time to meet somebody new of interest, somebody to have some fun with. A new romance could come into your life, and it could show you where you haven't been allowing yourself to have fun. Maybe you have too much fun. Now, because the fifth house does deal with children, if you have children, you could find that you have a conflict with one of your children. Or maybe one of your children is having a conflict at school, let's just say, or with their peers that you have to deal with while Mars is retrograde. Children in your life might just really aggravate you under this transit. Or you may find on the positive side of expression that you're really able to communicate with them more effectively. And that's the higher side to this Mars transit. The fifth house also deals with our creative expression. So again, if you want to start a podcast, for example, or start putting things out there in a more expressive manner, this energy is going to be beneficial for you because Gemini is the sign of communication and expression. And the fifth house, where this transit is going to be for you, is all about expressing ourselves. It's all about our creative projects and our creative work. This could be a great time for your creative voice to come out, or for you to figure out how to get it out while Mars is retrograde. Okay, Pisces rising. This is going to take place for you in your fourth house. Now, this could feel stressful for you because the fourth house is very dynamic and it deals with our personal life, right? It's very private. It's very behind the scenes. But it's also about our family, our roots. This is also about our parents, whether you are a parent or whether it is your parents that you're dealing with. You may find yourself dealing with them more under this energy or dealing with issues that crop up around them under this energy. Something could come up with the home, with your actual physical home. You may find, because again, we're dealing with conflict here at points with Mars in Gemini, especially while it's retrograde, and especially because you are a mutable sign, you are likely going to feel very irritated with some of those people in your life that are family. Could also be friends because, we choose our family at times too. We have our family of origin and then we've got chosen family. We've got the people that come in that we spend a lot of time with that become like family. So you can find yourself dealing with some irritation here. Just be more careful with your tongue because you're going to be overly emotional. And at the slightest provocation, you could pop off and really regret it. Remember, words are weapons. We must use them wisely, especially when it comes to your family. Because an old issue could totally resurface under this time period. Maybe you haven't spoken to a sibling in 15 years and something comes up and you speak to them again and it just brings up all this stuff and you get really frustrated, irritated, and angry. You want to watch that because it can be destructive. We want to try to use it so that it can be constructive and so that we can deal with the conflict in a higher form and fashion than what we're used to. Remember, the fourth house is family dynamics. And the fourth house is always the unconscious behaviors that drive us. And so there's something really significant here about busting through these walls, busting down these walls. And this happens through conflict. And through this, it gives us strength, especially if you're a Pisces rising. Now, in other cases, you may actually have to cut ties with somebody in your life. That may be what this Mars cycle is about for you, dealing with conflicts more effectively, which could be more about speaking up for yourself in a kind, compassionate, and loving manner, which Pisces is known for, and then cutting ties graciously because you've done all you can do. And only you will know that. Now, you also may find yourself dealing with some home repairs, some home improvements under this cycle. And if you're extra frustrated, why not redecorate? That could be a very beneficial way of using this retrograde cycle, Pisces. Because again, I do feel like this time for you could be emotionally stressful. You're recalibrating, you're reworking emotions, you're reworking your emotional roots, and that's not always easy. Not always easy, but it's necessary. Okay, so there we have Mars through all 12 signs. I hope that this was helpful. Take really good care of yourselves. Again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also sign up for my newsletter, lisasalvatore.com. I will be bringing back more events come fall and classes. So be sure that you're signed up for my newsletter and that you subscribe to the channel. Take care, guys. Bye.